sideways. Oh, never mind.
Does it? No, I think it automatically. Let me see.
What's going on, guys?
Hey, what's up, man? What's happening?
Not much, man. What's going on to our audience? Looks like we got only one viewer right now, but I know that'll be picking up. What's going on, everybody? What's going on, YouTube? I know it's been a while since you've seen us, but we are the Freedman Collective, and we're here 2022 to give you guys another episode of our podcast. Addressing Black issues, addressing Black reparations, and the topic, and pretty much going over the history of freedmen. So in today's episode, guys, we want to actually look within ourselves and, take a look at the enemy within. And by that, we're going to, in this session, we're going to really be talking about the Bootstrapper, the Pan-African, and the Indian, and some of the ideologies that we feel is harmful to the reparation space. I'm your co-host, Ernest. You guys know me. I'm out here in Lansing, Michigan. We got our other guys on here. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sure, man. It's Adolph J. Rocky, otherwise known, a.k.a. Gerard Ibn Lamont. I'm your East Side reparationist, freedman reparationist, man, bringing you the local and the national news and current affairs and through the reparationist lens, man. Peace and reparations.
Well, what up, everybody? This is your boy, your man, whatever, Conspiracy Brother. How y'all doing? See, I'm in the dark room, you know what I'm saying? I'm getting it all put together. Got that one singular light. We focus on what's going on here. And one thing I was going to say, since we're going to talk about, you said Indian, I'm sitting there like, oh, that sounds bad.
Pretendian, man, pretendian.
Yeah. So we're talking about the, what you call them, the what do you call it?
What kind of Indian? So, I mean, it's interesting because I'll say pretendian is the more appropriate term in the sense that we consider these folks the same lineage as us, Negroes, but apparently they want to claim a heritage that they believe is theirs. And so, it's interesting with that Indian movement or pretendian movement because it is linked to Aboriginal. It could be linked to the Moorish school of thought. It could be linked to Israelite school of thought. And at the same time, at the same time, when we're talking about American Indian or pretendian, there is a thin line between like FBA and those who consider themselves American Indian. So I mean, like status, it's a broad term, in my opinion. But we do got video clips that we could share with the audience so that they have a better understanding. Gerard, how would you classify it?
Yeah, man, I would say so as well. I think pretendian is the best, because you're using the word pretend, Indian, which is the, misnomer for Native American, right? So it kind of like, has a better, to me, a more appropriate term. Now it is pejorative or derogatory, but I think it aptly suits what they're trying to do. Like at the end of the day, escape hatch out of this freedman heritage, because freedman heritage has been tied and linked to the disadvantage, which is the main reason why we say, hey, we need to go ahead and get reparations, because the system has tied us to this bottomless, caste system, no matter what. And whatever spectrum of Black American or freedman American that you are, whether it be lower class, middle class, upper class, you're at a disadvantage due to such. So, and then there's been, I'm glad you brought up the other groups, you said the links. I mean, because there's historically, this is nothing new. There's always been some sort of group or mission to try to say, hey, we're not that, we're this, so therefore we're special. Therefore, i.e., don't treat us like the freedmen that we are. You know what I mean? Because in essence, they're really just are acknowledging, the like I said, the caste system that we have as a lineage, and more so even a race, a lot, which is both, but more so our lineage, right? Because we know that there's foreigners that come to this country that are quote unquote melanated, and they just join up with the major dominant society, white dominant society, without any problem. So it's not so much being melanated or quote unquote being of the black race, which I try to always say freedmen as much as possible to get us out of using that term when we're in discussion about us. Now we could say black as when we're saying a racial group. Those who come from sub-Saharan Africa or what have you will have links to sub-Saharan Africa, whether through the continent or the diaspora. But in our particular situation, just for no confusion, freedman is the apt title, and I think pretendian is the apt title in this particular situation. I'll let y'all cook at it.
Absolutely, we got to get that shots fired for that. That was
smoke. Boom, 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 boom.
It ain't even a shots fired no more. It's the explosion, or you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah,
one of them. But let me go ahead and cue up a clip, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and play for our audience, just for those folks who coming in the room. I'm gonna go ahead and play a clip from my other channel that kind of explores the differences between the different groups, so we can kind of break down some of that information. But once we play this animation video, I do want to take a deep dive into Pan-Africanism and talk to you guys about what do we believe, I guess, are the most harmful things that come out of the ideology of Pan-Africanism, because it is just the ideology and it does have some positivity. But I think, we could definitely do a deep dive into some of the negative impacts and what's kind of caused this current disconnect amongst our generation. But let me go ahead and share my screen, so let me know when you guys can see it. Go ahead and just share my entire window here. Can you guys see?
No, not at the moment.
Okay.
No, not yet.
My bad. I got it. So what it is I gotta cue it up at the bottom. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead, bring that in the screen. One page. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Bear with me.
No worries, brother.
I'm starting to see how magical Darville is with all of that.
Oh yeah, bro. Hey, don't do that junk, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Hold on.
He really does, bro. Oh yeah, we didn't even mention that. Our boy Darville ain't here.
Yeah, our boy Darville.
So our producer, the fourth component of the Freedman Collective, obviously a very important component. Even when he's not, joined into that discussion, he's not here to join us. He has some other business tonight. So, he here with us in spirit. Obviously, we need the spirit to be a little stronger because the technology is killing us.
Okay, guys. 1 second. I figured out a better way to do this. So I'll just share that specific tab. Can you guys see my screen or not yet?
Not yet, sir.
Okay, cool. All right. So now you guys should be able to see it, adding it to the screen.
Yes, it's coming up.
To here.
Yep, there we go.
Like I said, I want to play the whole video, but again, this is just something we put together on my channel, just explaining the differences between the different groups. So I will just start it off at the high level recap, so that we can, just for the audience sake, that we can see what's going on here. Black Americans or Black Aboriginal people will be able to restore the lands and treaties that were once stolen from their people. Now that you guys have heard an explanation, I hope all of this information makes sense to you. Now let's do a quick high-level recap of what we just covered. ADOS stands for American Descendants of Slavery. ADOS believes in a lineage-based reparations approach. ADOS believes that Black Americans should identify as American descendants of slavery. They are interested in delineation, data disaggregation, immigration reform, reparations, and political protections for American descendants of slavery. Similar to ADOS, but very different, foundational Black Americans also believe in delineation, data disaggregation, immigration reform, reparations, and political protections. Where they differ is that they believe reparations should be made available to the former Black Indians as well as the formerly Black enslaved populations in the United States of America. That is a vast distinction from groups such as the American Freedmen or ADOS that seek to keep reparations lineage-based and focused on the African descendants of American chattel slavery. For movements such as the American Indians or FBA, there is a focus or need for the identification of peoples who were reclassified as Negroes or Blacks, and for those people to reclaim the lost lands and inheritances stolen from their people. From a Pan-African approach, Pan-Africans believe that all Black people in America should receive reparations no matter what country they're from or if they're of immigrant origin. Pan-Africans believe that no matter your ethnicity, the simple fact that you are Black and you have entered the United States, you are subject to the same repair as Black Africans who were enslaved in the United States of America. Similar to the American Indians, their movement has a heavy emphasis on tribe affiliation, as well as the need to identify with the blanket term of being African. Now, you would ask, how is that similar to the American Indian situation? Well, where they're similar is that the American Indian has specific ties to the continent of Americas, and they believe that you should also seek a tribal affiliation in order to go back to the previous conditions of Black Americans before colonization of the Americas. Now, American freedmen, while similar to ADOS, the main key difference is that there is a heavy focus on American freedmen in the history or identification of the freedmen protection class that was created for the formerly enslaved Black Americans. When looked at from an analytical view, ADOS or American freedmen have a different ideology that is based around the naming or the current naming of Black Americans and their current political protection status. Similarities between FBA and American Indians also exist. FBAs and American Indians both recognize the indigenous blood that could flow in some African Americans. Where they differ from ADOS or freedmen is that they believe that Black Indians were at one point a great population here in the United States and that those people were enslaved. Their stories are similar, or their frameworks are similar, in that they seek justice for the Indians that were formerly reclassed under colonization or white supremacy in America. Similarities between Pan-Africans, ADOS, and freedmen is that they believe in the framework of the transatlantic slave trade and do not make any attempts to denounce the histories that were proposed. Pan-Africans, unfortunately, are different from ADOS and freedmen in that they believe in a race-based approach where all people of African descent are due reparations due to the injustices suffered by certain ethnic groups in America. On the other hand, ADOS and American freedmen believe that the specific injured party or the specific surviving families of American chattel slavery and Jim Crow, i.e. the freedmen, should receive reparations.
So, I mean, that's just like a quick, I guess, overview, like, without wasting too much time trying to, bring the crowd up to speed about the different movements. But what did you guys think? I mean, did I hit it on the head when we're talking about the differences between ADOS and freedmen versus even the differences between maybe a FBA and what they call an American Indian, which is underneath the Indian umbrella? But, I'm definitely interested in you guys' thoughts.
Yeah, I would say with what I know, with what I understand to be the whole American Indian thing, like I haven't really researched a lot of into it as far as the real intricacies of what they like, even what they call themselves. But like, I would say that you explained everything fairly well, because how I understand it, they believe that the majority of Black people were already in this country coming from Africa, I think still they still acknowledge that we came from Africa, but just such a long time prior to the slave trade that we were already here. And so, yeah, I mean, as far as like an analysis of that kind of explanation, I do believe that it's very likely that Africans did come to the Americas because of proximity to like when you look at the coast of Brazil and the coast of West Africa, they're so close that I would find it hard to believe that the people were able to build boats, weren't able to build boats that could reach over here. But I don't think that there was enough people here. Let's say it was tons of people. I don't discount that transatlantic slave trade happened. So that automatically would, I guess, disallow me from belonging to this group. And then I think they have some kind of different, don't they have some kind of different like interpretation of what we consider Native Americans? Like, don't they call them something else or like have a theory about how they got to be here or whatever?
Absolutely. That Bering Strait theory, that the red Indians versus the black ones, based on how I've heard it, when we're talking about the Aboriginal movement, the concept, like you said, Stedman, majority of all the black people in this the continents of Americas were here before the transatlantic slave trade. And, my whole pushback with that is like, we got current things, right? Like DNA, things like that could literally trace the genetics of black folks here in America. And, sadly, with the Aboriginal movement, there is some sort of like pseudoism that's been introduced to the point where they'll deny a DNA test just by stating that it's made by white people. But these are the same black folks who would rely on a DNA test for a murder, DNA test for child, you know what I'm saying, to identify whose child it is, all of these things. And again, back to the original point, right? Like, what's the differences between like the Aboriginal or how they think? I think believing that majority of the black people were already here kind of puts you in this framework that all of the black Americans that descend from slavery are actually American Indians. And in my opinion, that's a stretch. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's a hell of a stretch, man.
Yeah, like, I can't really. There's things too that like I feel like they have some good points too. Like, when we look at people, right, back then, melanated people could easily get classified as black, depending on the white person that they're dealing with. But even with that being the case, some of the research that I've been doing is looking into like the number of Negro population compared to free colored population at the time, if we're looking at the 1800s or even prior censuses. And what you'll see is that there has always been a group identified as Negro, which was tied directly to the transatlantic slave trade. And as those numbers have like grown over the year, I think it is in correlation to, the breeding that's been going on in America, as well as the transatlantic slave trade. My main pushback, and I'll open it up to you guys, my main pushback to like the indigenous movement or the pretendians is that if majority of the people in this continent were black, we would see a majority that still reflects that today. The fact that white Europeans were able to import mass numbers to the point where they have the majority over the native-born population is almost in my eyes a fact that there wasn't a large population of black folks prior to white colonialization.
Right, exactly. And so let's use colonialization that we've seen in Africa, right? So you mean to tell me? So in essence, they're basically saying that what happened in Africa, right, with white colonialism and them taking over the land and resources of Africa, happened in North America as well, or in the Americas as well, to the native black population. Now, here's the thing. Here's where how is it possible that a group of people that were there for however period of time will completely lose their language? Because if you lose their language, not know the ins and outs of the geography or what have you, have no ties to their ancestry. They're on the land. It's not like, okay, so when we're going with this, we're going to take their theory. They never were taken from somewhere else to where they could lose it. You know what I mean? There will still always be groups of people, you know what I'm saying, that would know it. Even if you just you took all the children away, right? Even let's give them that. Okay, well, they took all the children away, therefore they never know. You would have large encampments that would have to have taken place on a massive scale, you know what I'm saying, to where you would just completely just divorce the people from their culture, their language, that would have been built over, well, let's say, at least 800 years, you know what I'm saying? If we're to say that the Aboriginals came from Africa through seafaring ways. See, that's another thing. They don't. Well, so which way was it? You know what I mean? So you mean to tell me that a whole millions and millions of population of people came over pre Atlantic Atlantic slave trade, right? That populated the Caribbean, North America, South America, because it was millions of people that were here. You know what I mean? Upon when the Europeans arrived, millions of people. In the western part of the, when you think about the western part of the United States, didn't get touched until the 1800s. You know what I'm saying? The whites have been in this country for about, since the 1600s, right? Spanish since the 1500s. Okay. So European navigation to this side of the world. If we take the earliest versions, would have been, the Scandinavians back in like the 800s. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you talk about in Canada, Newfoundland, Greece, Iceland, those areas, right? Those, I think, is the earliest European exploration, is maybe take you back to the 800s, maybe. You know what I'm saying? Actually, I think it's actually even after that, because if you think about it, 1033 is when William the Conqueror took over. First the Norsemen came from Norway and Scandinavia to take over England, the Germanic tribes in England, and that was in 1033. You know what I mean? So we're saying after the first millennia, right, after 1000 AD, that maybe has the earliest Europeans to come in contact with Native Americans in Canada, right? So we have to say, okay, when would the blacks would have came prior to that, right? You know what I'm saying? From West Africa, from the Islamic states in Mali and Songhai and so on and so forth. Maybe 700, maybe 5. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe. You know what I mean? Maybe that time. So you would have to say it would take more than 500 years to populate this massive land in the Caribbean, all the islands and most of the islands in the Caribbean, right? You know what I'm saying? As well as, all the peoples that were found in the western part of the United States and California will later become California. All those tribes, you know what I'm saying? The ones that were here in the Michigan, the Huron Indians, the Illinois, the Livernois, all those type of people that ended up dying out. The ones that the New Englanders came in contact with. We're talking about, and not even to mention all in Brazil, right? Or South America, I'm sorry. Millions and millions of people. You can't get that many millions of people in 500 years. You just can't do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, go ahead.
Well, I was even going to say, like, since you bring up the Caribbean situation, like I've done quite a bit of reading on like the Haitian Revolution. And so one of the reasons, one of the, like, I guess the most important books you can read about that is The Black Jacobins by C.L.R. James. And he brings up because people like to, what I learned like from reading about it is if people glamorize the Haitian Revolution in a way that isn't really, isn't real. It's not based in reality. Yeah, it's not factual. I mean, it was still tremendous what happened, but it's not factual. It's like they have mythologized it. And so one of the things he talks about is between 2/3 and 3/4 of the population of Haiti at the time of revolution was directly from Africa. They wasn't like first generation, or they was directly from Africa. And so that's one of the reasons why it was so easy for them to revolt, because they knew a life of freedom, right? These were adult people who came to Santo Domingo enslaved and were willing to fight for freedom they remembered. We're in a country full of people who spoke a language that they knew, right? Even they say Toussaint Louverture was a chief's son, right? In Africa. They don't know what country he was from. And so that he might have been educated in his youth before he got to Haiti, what we now know as Haiti. And so even that, you know, if we know that we can look at Haitian people and we can find parallels in their phenotype to ours, how can they be, and we know this for a fact, they have so many direct African descendants in that country, at least they did in 1803, 1804, 1802. And we come from here and we don't have those, or supposedly we don't have those direct, because the issue, one of the things that and this guy, he was from Trinidad, I worked with when I was about 10 years ago. He would always say, one thing about black people, you can't about us, anybody else, we the only people with this kind of hair. You know, Indians have straight hair. They can be dark, but they have straight hair. I mean, you know, some black people, you know, they can have straight hair, but we're the only people on this planet with hair like this, with coiled hair like this. And so when you look at those pictures, you can see pictures of, like, if you go look at pictures of Sitting Bull, he was a real dark person, but he had straight hair. You know, you can go find old photographs of Indian chiefs and Native American Indian people. They were really dark compared to what you would call their descendants today, but they had straight hair. And so how do we kind of square that circle where, let's say, okay, I'm a Native American. I can pull my hat off. If I pull my hat off, you can see that my hair, you know, I got a certain texture, but their hair didn't look like this. It wasn't curly. It was straight. You see what I'm saying? Where do you bridge that gap? Where did my family come from that ancestrally they had straight hair and all of a sudden it's kinky and no Africa in it? You know what I'm saying? So that's the part, you know, when you look at those, and like you're saying with those numbers, because 500 years ago, if we look at that 500 years ago, that'd have been what, 1500? The whole
and let me get it correct. What I was saying was, okay, let's say, okay, so when I meant 500 years, let's say from the time the Europeans came, right? So right. you know, 1492 was when Columbus landed in Haiti, right? You know what I mean? What would later become Haiti. Okay, so let's give it 500 years prior to that. You know, let's just say, you know what I'm saying? And what's that? At 880 whatever, you know, 800 AD, you know what I'm saying? That you know, some Africans came, because there are some tales of people leaving from Africa, going to, you know what I'm saying, and never coming back. You know what I mean? But again, that wouldn't populate all these people in that short amount of time. You know what I'm saying? What's the explanation? You know, like you know, like, so are you saying that black people just, you know what I'm saying, was homogenous to this area? I mean, even so, even for the Native Americans and the indigenous people throughout the Western Hemisphere, they use the Bering Strait as, you know, saying they came from Mongolia. You know what I mean? Or they came from Asia, and that's how they came over. You know what I'm saying? And then it took thousands upon thousands of years for those people to migrate, and, you know, all throughout the whole, you know, continent of North America and South America and Central America. You know what I mean? To be the different peoples that they were. I mean, you're talking about thousands and thousands of years that would have to have happened. You know what I mean? Not like, you know, a few people that left Africa from West Africa on boats that, you know, maybe at that time probably could carry, you know, maybe 100-something people or something. You know what I'm saying? If that, you know what I mean? And probably more likely than not, that, you know, half of the people probably, you know, those delegations or those ships, you know, let's say that maybe, you know, most of them probably died, you know what I'm saying? Because the ships got wrecked or drowned at sea. So it wouldn't be like you would have had the full, you know, amount of people that left and came, you know what I mean? Or what have you. So, I mean, like, so again, we can concede the fact that, yes, there's probably may have been throughout whatever time, you know what I'm saying? Or what have you. Let's even prior to that, you know, pre-Christ time, right? You know what I'm saying? You know, we could concede that, or common era for those who don't like to use the BC and AD. We could concede that there probably could have been some sort of, you know, sea travel from West Africa to South America or to the Americas or what have you, but not in the numbers that would have, you know, populated a whole freaking continent. You know, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no.
And then on top of that, they lose that language within, you know what I'm saying, a short period of time.
Yeah,
We like
that's
that,
the
like,
big part for me, like you said. That's the big part.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's two
as an example.
So there's two things here. Like, one,
Go ahead.
When we're talking about the Indian movement, there is no recognition. The Pretendian movement, there is no recognition. There is no recognition of African heritage, despite transatlantic slave trade.
Right.
Like, when we're talking about debating people who come from this square, and I spent some time doing this, like over the last few months.
Right.
When you pose the question that, are you saying you don't have any African blood in your bloodline because you could not find specifically a piece of paper on the 1860 census or a bill of sale that said African? Because you couldn't find it, are you saying you have no African blood in you? The answer is yes, there is no African blood. My grandmother said I'm Indian. Then the other explanations is when we're talking about the Aboriginal population in America, they've tried to equate it to the Aboriginal population that we see in Australia, where because there's been thousands of years of separation from Africa, the Black Aboriginal people of Australia have a different genetic makeup than that of Africans.
They do. So that would they
that's
do.
true. And so when we challenge them and say, if you're proving that you're different, go get a DNA test from the white folks, and they'll let you know what your admixture is. But the pushback there is, why would we trust a white man to identify us when they've already reclassified? So it's like you're going to keep going into this constant circle.
You're going in a circle.
But even with the Aboriginals in Australia, though, there's off the east coast of Africa, not the Seychelles, but like I think they look real similar to them folks. Still. And they talk about and they talk about how they sailed all that, like back in the day, they sailed all that way over there. So like you still have, and I mean, you know, like I don't know if any of y'all have watched that Ancient Aliens show. Like you see them where they got like those ancient artifacts, or like what's the tribe in Africa? I think the Dongo tribe or the Dayglo tribe, where they like mapped the rotation of the solar system. And they didn't even like have no way to see the solar system, but this dance they did every so often was the exact rotation of the solar system. They had like a sculpture. They had a little sculpture that mapped it out too. And until the 70s, it wasn't even verifiable with the human eye, like because you can't see it with the naked eye at all, but you can see it with we finally had telescopes. So like there are things that happen in the earth and in the universe or whatever that I think are miraculous and mysterious, and maybe we'll never understand it. But like you saying, I mean, I've been to Australia. I've been there. Them people look different, bro. Aboriginal Australians look like something you ain't never seen, because a lot of them, they have like a straightish kind of hair. Their hair is almost like wavy straight, and they have big, like they almost look like black cavemen. Like if you could look at a picture of a caveman and just paint them black, and then give them like a kinkier hair, but not kinky, just slightly. That's how they look. But some of them have blonde hair, but they got the real thick eyebrow ridge. Like they look different than any African you ever seen. They perfectly suited to their environment, like y'all saying though. So you have evolved these skills to live in the most, you know, Australians are still, the white Australians still dying over there. And y'all have been living there in the outback, you know, for centuries. And so, I mean, it's just, even when you look at, like, you can go back and look at pictures of like Hawaiians, because the Hawaiian royal family, so they were a royal family, and go back to like one of the first kings of Hawaii. He's dark. Like dark. Like if you put him up, you could say, oh no, you black, you African.
King Kamehameha.
And the thing is that just because these people had dark skin doesn't mean we were the same exact people. And that's something that's always missed, because even with like where we look at our people today, like once we lost the culture, the heritage, the language, all of that, and we reformed whatever was new under this Negro title, and then we started to create this new Black American culture we see today, like that is who we are. Like we're the people who lost something, but regained something even greater, I'll say, in the process. But a lot of folks when we're talking about the Indian, or even like, we'll stick with the pretendians for now, but when we're talking about the pretendian folks, they like to claim a culture that isn't theirs. Like, I've heard people like have pride in these concepts of powwows and talk about how when we get reparations that we need to get back all the land and get the treaties recognized, and that these white folks living in these cities, Chicago and stuff, they got to get the fuck on because that's ours and the treaties promised this. And so like my whole issue with the movement is that politically speaking, it's not practical. And not only that, if you were to go to any politician speaking that language, that rhetoric, like I think they already have laws that says it's illegal to cosplay as Native Americans. And what this country considers a Native American is a card-toting member, or someone who can prove their lineage to someone who has the Dawes Rolls and all of that other stuff. And so again, like to just hop out and say, yeah, I'm an American Indian because of my one grandmother, but your entire, like, I wouldn't even say entire bloodline, I'll say majority of your great-great-great-grandparents identified as Negroes and mulattoes and lived under an existence that was tied to the United States as a nation. It wasn't tied to any of these tribal sovereign nations that we do have that exist in the United States. It was specifically linked to the U.S., which would make
Ernest, go ahead. So we don't want somebody jumping on us. We do know that there was black people that were enslaved by the so-called five civilized nations or whatever, right?
Exactly. And so here's the other kickback. Whenever we listen to American Indians or American Indians, FBA, Aboriginal, or the pretendians, the main concept is this. Like I said earlier, they won't recognize that they have any African blood. But when we look at all of the black people that these tribes enslaved, these were literally African slaves that they bought from white people. And when you look at the testimonies of these Chickasaw freedmen, these Choctaw freedmen, the Tuscaroran freedmen, some of them say, I have African blood in me, like from my parent that I was like born in the continent and shipped here to America. Yes, I did slave and toil and birth the kids of these native people. But by doing that, now I have like native citizenship, et cetera, all of the things that were formed out of that 1866 treaty. And so again, these are black people who are actually recognized as Native Americans today. They're not recognized as black as far as race or whatever. But the fact is, these people identify with African heritage, but that's not necessarily brought up. Like, even if you look at the Library of Congress, how they classify African Americans versus Native African Americans is that Native African Americans are the enslaved Africans of the civilized tribes or Indian tribes that existed in America. But again, no recognition to Africa, right? Like, we don't have no African in us, but you got these tribes, these people who can recognize that. And I find it problematic. But Stedman, if you got anything you wanted to go ahead and say, go ahead. And I'm gonna just queue up these Dane Calloway clips so we can get past the Indian discussion, jump into Pan-Africanism right after this.
Okay, so what I was gonna say, Gerard, what you brought up, and I think that's real powerful too, is about how you would have had to have set up schools and had knowledge of it, because we have a history of that in America, right? With the in like Louisiana with the Cajuns, where they took those kids up until like I think the 40s. They took those kids who spoke French from their parents and forced them to go to schools where they learned English, where they spoke English. They gave them English names. And like you find now where there's a Cajun resurgence movement where these people are trying to learn French again. Like they born in the 70s and then the 80s. And like in New Orleans and then like the south of Louisiana, they're trying to learn French again because the U.S. government took those kids away and forced them away from that language. They took them away from that land, from learning. Like you have those guys on the shows, the Gator Hunters, the Bayou dudes, where they kind of don't, like their English is so broken, you can't understand it without subtitles. And they have an understanding of how swamps and bayous and the marshlands work that it is inextractable from who they are. And they only been here, when did they come from Canada, the Acadians? That was what, like 1740?
Yeah, maybe.
Because it was after
Actually, I want to say, was it after 1812? The War of 1812?
No. It was before that, because it was because it was after the U.S. got. No, it was before, because the British got Michigan from, I think they got Michigan from the French. So it was like the 17 something. So these people from Canada, when France and when Napoleon, it might have been 18.
Hold on, man. Listen. Hold on, Acadian. It says by the early 1800s. See, early 1800s. Check this out. 1800s, not 17. From Acadian to
17. Yeah. Okay.
When hold on, why did the Acadians come to Louisiana? Let me go here. But either way, I'm saying here is saying by the early 1800s, nearly 4,000 Acadians had arrived and settled in Louisiana. So by 1800, 4,000 that came. Let me get the actual the time when did the Acadians come?
And you see that they have a connection to the land and the culture that's inextricable from them. Right. And even you look at the native schools that we had in this country, remember about Canada where they had all those bodies buried, where you had native children who were forced to go to English schools and learn, Christianity and all.
But notice that the whole language was never wiped out. Like it wasn't completely full. It wasn't a completely 100%. They don't know nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like absolutely nothing. You know what I mean? Like we don't know anything, right? No one's speaking the languages. No one knows where the lands were.
I heard somebody, Gerard, I heard somebody say, well, that's because the white people was killing our people and they didn't let them do that. So of course they don't know. But
doesn't make any sense.
That is what I'm saying. It's a lot of contradictions, but I got this clip up from the GOAT himself, Dane Calloway. For those who don't know who Dane Calloway is, he is, I would like to consider him the voice of the Aboriginal or American Indian movement, just in the sense that like how people look to certain folks within the ADOS space or in the Freedman space for validation, like Darity, etc. When we're looking at the Aboriginal movement, certain faces and voices like Tariq Nasheed, Dane Calloway, we got some other local folks that I've met personally, like Big Chief Topcats and a few other people who identify with this movement, the ideology. And some of the things that they say it's like in direct opposition to reparations for American Negro freedmen, those of us who literally can trace our lineage to slavery and Jim Crow. So let me go ahead and play this and let me know what you guys think on this. Oh, just the preference. This video is how Black Americans lost their political power. And what he's trying to do is create this narrative that during Reconstruction and slavery, because Black people were the majority of the free people that were here and that the Indians had a lot of land and recognition, he makes the argument in this clip that Reconstruction was used to strip Black Indians of their identity, to restructure the government and force them in this position where they would have to identify as the African slaves who were just freed. So listen closely, guys.
Is it an audio clip or a video clip?
Oh, can you guys hear? Oh, shoot, my bad.
We can't see nor hear it.
Yeah, my bad. I didn't even bring it in. There it is. Let me go ahead and go back to it now. All right.
Second constant point happening. Remember, hold on. Matter of fact, I want to point this out to you right now because y'all pointed out 1871 with that second constitution. That was excellent, right? When was slavery abolished? Now they gonna say 1863, 1865. So why did they have to hurry up and come up with another constitution? Hold up. Wait a minute. Because when slavery was abolished, allegedly, why did they have to change the rules? Let me see if somebody gonna get it before I say it. Why did they have to change the rules? They hurried up and did it. 1863, 1865 is when slavery was allegedly abolished by this government. And then this government hurried up 1871, made themselves first class. You know how you first class in the plane? And everybody else in a different seating area? Look at it that way. How they structured the bus that Rosa Parks was boycotting on. The so-called coloreds had to sit in the back. Why do we have to desegregate when they was promoting segregation? Oh no, I'm going too far. Ignore that I said that. Just come back up. I know I jumped. I didn't mean to jump right there. Stay on what I just said as far as the class is concerned.
Bro,
because I want you to pinpoint that timeline. 1863, 18.
But this is how they teach their folks, Gerard.
Homestead Acts is still going on also. I see you. Don't go to 1879. Don't come too far up. Come back. Stay in that area where they started promoting that first class citizenship. What happened? Okay, the Freeman Bureau, you getting hot. You're getting hot. Classism was already in play. Classism, Reconstruction. Thank you.
That Baltimore accent hard.
Reconstruction. There it is.
Now watch what he said about Reconstruction.
Huh? Listen, that's exactly when it happened. Remember, Woodrow Wilson and them ain't getting to office until the top of the 1900s. Remember, they start, okay, there you go, Reconstruction Act of 1869. They were revamping everything because guess who had control? Uh-oh. Think about it. If we had the lands, the banks, the farms, I'm gonna say it again. If we had the lands, the banks, the farms, the jobs, the businesses, we had all of agriculture, they gotta reconstruct. Oh my God, they doing better than us. So, well, we gotta reconstruct this so every foreigner can.
All right, man. I think we got it. I think we got it. This is a historical, a historical take on
Reconstruction,
on history, bro.
And again, this is just only thing, and this is me as a media editor. All he did was put like suspicious piano music in the background, and then all he doing is casting doubt on moments in history just by throwing stuff out there. This isn't anything backed up. And so as you heard in the end, he said, when we talking about Reconstruction, they had to reconstruct the fact that we had all of the lands, all of the jobs, all of the properties. Now, here's the reality. When we look at the 1860 census, majority of the Black people in this land were Negroes that were in the South. And those Negroes that were in the South made up at least 80 to 90% of our population. All of those 4 million Black people that were in the South were slaves. They were freed by Emancipation Proclamation. When we look at the number of free mulattoes and we look at the number of free Blacks, they literally do not equate for more than 50% of that slave population. So when people start talking about, we had all of the land, we had all of the jobs. Yes, Black people had more land then than they do now, because you have to think about what type of country we were dealing with. There weren't that many immigrants. It was definitely Black free folks who had money and wealth accumulated, and they were able to purchase land. And there were agricultural sharecroppers and slaves who inherited that land. But when you start like painting this picture that Reconstruction only occurred because they needed to figure out a way to how to cheat Indians, that's why I found like all of the arguments that they given is just disingenuous, or it's a replay of history on their own words. But with that being said, guys, I mean, I feel like we cooked this one enough. But if y'all got any last comments on Dane, let me know and we'll move on.
Bro, that was beyond them using their own words. That was just straight lying, dude. Like 100. Yeah, like that was like literally, man. Like you can only prey on people who don't know, history. And unfortunately, our educational system really doesn't, stress history and civics. And I always loved history because I'm like, man, it's the easiest freaking grade you can get. I got to remember dates. That's all I have to do. Like this is easy, man. Social studies, freaking history, man. Like that was
this already happened.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? I can remember some dates. Yeah, man. Like that was just just was terrible, bro. You know what I'm saying? They got a Reconstruction. They doesn't even know what Reconstruction was. And so here's the thing. So to even what you were saying, man, So the first census that had the U.S. Census that had black people's names on it, you know what I mean? For most of those that were coming out of slavery was actually 1870 because the census is done every 10 years. Now, there was the largest population in the South of free black people were actually in New Orleans and Charlotte, South Carolina. There were pockets of black people that got manumission or through whatever, they were mulattoes, whatever the case may be. They obviously had to get manumission. So maybe their ancestor had it, grandparents had it, whatever the case may be, but for the most part, free black people did not, you know what I'm saying? They lived in the North, if anything, And I'm not even sure if they even calculated the free black people, in the federal census. You know what I mean? That's a question that needs to be
asked.
They
did, Gerard. They did. You know what I'm saying? And this is like how much we got to get into the details, just because, like you said, people don't know the history, and so again, the only way we can refute Dane Calloway saying something is if we can prove that he's wrong. And you know what I'm saying? Like, for me personally, we could all say stuff on this show, but if we don't have an accurate portrayal of history, then I guess anybody could just point out our fallacies or, point out things that they have issue with that we talked about. But to that thing that you were talking about, Gerard, like, did they delineate or did they clarify this information? And what I did was I went to the U.S. Census directly. And so you can see here, This is the 1860 U.S. Census. And you can see, look at how they delineated, bro. Like, they even said in the northern free states, here's the black populations as far as colored people. Blacks, 1850, and mulattoes. And you can see that blacks and mulattoes who were free at the time, well, I guess I'm not even going to count these guys as free because it doesn't clarify that. But you can see here that the population in the North, as far as blacks, was vastly smaller than the population in the South. And you can see here the blacks numbered in the South to 3 million in 1850, and then 3,697,000 in 1860. But mulatto population was only 500,000 in the South. And then in the North, it was only 69,000. So again, that's not even half of the Negro population in the South that was reclassified as mulattoes or something else. Then when you go down, it gives more information about the total color population in the United States. Then there's another page that goes into the free colored blacks as well as the total enslaved. And like, again, it even shows you which blacks owned slaves versus which ones did not. And so out of the free blacks and mulattoes, only 238,000 had slaves. But when you look at the total amount of free people, again, I guess you could say out of the free people, maybe 50% did have slaves based on these statistics. But again,
I'm sure that family,
exactly.
Yeah, in order to prevent them from,
exactly. And so again, just the last part, like, it shows you here clearly the free colors, blacks and mulattoes, and the totals, and then it even goes into the slave population. And again, look at this. There were more mulatto slaves, 411,000, than there were actual mulattoes. So if you're looking at this total, there's only 176,000 free mulattoes, slaves or non-slave. And again, the total slave population of mulattoes in 1860 was 411,000. But I mean, again, that was just me showing you guys, like, when we doing these arguments and debates with these Indians, I got to go find actual stats to say, hold on, man, look, this is what we working with. Everybody didn't have a layer.
And I wish I had that stat. I wish I had that. I'm going to have to take that from when them ladies were talking about how white men always loved them. You know what I'm saying? On the slave plantation. He ain't free them mixed babies, did he?
Hey, bro. It's like, look, like we was talking about. If you knew if a farmer knew he could impregnate his cow to get more cows, you think he wouldn't do that? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Just on a practical basis.
White man been loving
how much it costs. You know how much it costs to rent a stud bull? to rent a stud horse? You know what I'm saying? It costs money to rent stud animals. If you could do it yourself,
it cost money. It was costing money to buy people. You know what I'm saying? Like if you ever look at see how much they was charging back then. Like, okay, I was seeing prices $800, $1,200, $300. Hey, a black person, a freedman today, you say $800, mama, like, I ain't got it.
Right. Hey, so and that's really important too, though. You look at the numbers for mulatto slaves. All that means is what? Wasn't no black dads in that mix. Right?
Exactly.
Wasn't no black father, right?
It was no black.
All right.
That's a good point. Hey,
organic.
Anyway.
Well, I mean, and I guess you guys got any other comments on Dane Calloway, the Pretendian movement before we move on? I feel like
it's Pretendian history. Yeah. It's Pretendian escape hatches. It's Pretendian on so many different levels, man. It's like, how can you even take it serious? But that's how much a freedman want to just. I mean, listen. We were hanging on to, like, we were calling ourselves Ethiopians because, you know what I'm saying, back in the day. And we have no connection to Ethiopia at all. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, we just grabbed onto anything that's, Egyptians. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was the Egyptology movement. You know what I mean?
But
anything, bro.
But again, if you're thinking about it, it makes sense for our people, right? Like, given the slavery aspect, when you strip that religion and all of that social stuff, man, it's hard to say what was what when we know for a fact that white people lied. And so that's the greatest thing I think the Pretendian movement got for them is that white people did lie. And with white people lying, they're able to tell an uneducated black person, like, this is what they lied about. Now, you going to believe them on this? Your own grandma just told you, your own grandma. And again, people didn't realize a black Indian freedman, this is the last comment I got on it. He laid it out that during, after 1866, once all of these, like during the Dawes Rolls and all of this stuff, when that stuff came out, when black people and white Europeans, when they realized that land allotments were being given to Indian freedmen up to 460 acres out in the Oklahoma and in the West, a lot of people, even Negroes who were slaves, formerly slaves or sharecroppers, they had the thought in their mind to say, if I just change my name on this paper, that I could get in on those benefits, get in on that land, get in on those. And that's what a lot of people did. $5 Indians and even $5 African Americans who joined and signed up on those rolls. And again, I'll say, to add some nuance, yes, some of us have ancestors that, were on those rolls, that have some Indian ancestry in them. Like for me, I got one like grandmother, great grandmother, who shows up on the Dawes Rolls. But all of her children and her husband's family, everybody, they were treated like Negroes in Mississippi and in the South. They didn't have any tribal recognition or affiliation. They didn't wear any of those clothes. Their story was linked directly to them slaves who came off that plantation with them white folks. And again, I feel like for most Black Americans in this country, that's our story. I don't believe the story is we were all here, we had tribes, and we were living in harmony. And before the white man came, they took everything that we identified as, Again, I'm just against that. But what you guys got?
Well,
I'll second that.
What we're talking about, the enemies of reparations, man.
Yeah.
So that was just one, man. What about
second
one?
Pan-Africans.
Pan-Africans, man.
All right, so I feel like we all familiar with the Pan-Africans, and to be quite honest.
Listen.
You see
this? We can't say that that we're not familiar with Pan-African thought. We can't say, what I'm saying, that we're against the Pan-African.
Hey, Stephen would have had through all our broadcasts talking about freedmen history. So yes, we know what the RGB, stand for. Like, again, I think as Black people, from a race standpoint, right? Like, I think Black Americans, we get race the most. Like, we understand that there's other Black people out here, and from a white supremacist standpoint, we would work with Black people first before we work with white people. And I think that's like one of the core themes of Pan-Africanism or whatnot. But as it gets down to the nitty-gritty with reparations, I've been calling it neo-Pan-Africanism, guys. I don't know about y'all, but I think what we've been seeing in the mainstream media with this over-romanticization of the African continent, this concept of Black Americans need to get rid of anything that makes us American and reclaim our African roots. I believe those things are a part of like the enemy within. So similar to how like the Indians, they want us to give up this Negro identity, this Black American identity, this history, heritage, and claim American Indians and customs that we don't have any practice with. That's the same thing that Pan-Africans want to do. And I can understand that from like the conversations I've had about Pan-Africanism. It's a broad word when you say Pan-Africanism. And like someone broke it down real simple. They said, Pan, all Africans, ism, anything like, Africans or whatever, that would be technically Pan-Africanism. And I felt like when people do that, it's almost too broad of a brush where you got Pan-Africans claiming that anybody could have been a Pan-African underneath that umbrella. And so like when we talking about reparations, my main issues with Pan-Africans is that one, there is this race-based approach because again, they believe that all Black people suffer the same issues. And as a result of that, in America, we have one common enemy, which is white supremacy. And they believe we should all be united under this idea of race. The second issue I have is these ideas of repatriation. I don't believe it does anything for the Black American economy or political power in this country. And then the third issue that I have with Pan-Africans is that when it comes to the Black American identity, I think they've shown clear that they wouldn't want us to, diversify ourselves into our own ethnic group. And there's been several instances online where I've seen like flat out attempts for us to just globally identify as being African and, with that, accept that America is in our country and, find the African country that your bloodline is connected to and one day repatriate that. That's kind of the message I get from Pan-Africanism, but definitely want to open it up to you guys. Go ahead and jump in.
Yeah. To me, that's just totally foolish and ahistorical, and it's not rooted in anything scientific or educated, academic, nothing. Because we all understand, for example, like when I talked about with Haiti, that like they tried to join the African Union, if I'm not mistaken, and they were denied. Haiti tried to join the African Union. But like when you look at the transatlantic slave trade, no one Black American freedman, Negro, and I would even venture up and down the Western Hemisphere, is from one tribe in Africa. So, I take a DNA test and it don't even break it down by tribe. It's just going to break it down by country. So I'm going to take a DNA test. I won't do it because they take control of your DNA for the rest of for however long they want. But you take it, so they'll have European because we have European. And if you got some Native American DNA based on the markers, they'll have some. And then they'll have 5 or 6 different African countries. So what are you supposed to do? Pick which one you like the most and say, this is where I'm from and this is the cultural heritage that I support or that I gravitate to. And so this is really what I feel like Pan-Africanism is rooted. The ideology is rooted in the fact that we don't know where we come from. And so because we Black and we don't know where we come from specifically as far as tribe or country, we're just going to make Africa one blanket place. And everybody there is the same because we all the same. And then we go there, we just be all, we in Africa, we just one big place. And that ain't how it works. The reason the Americas works that way is because we were basically all, this world over here was colonized by basically 2 countries, right? England and then Spain. And so you have the majority of Canada speaks English, the majority of America speaks English, and then you have Mexico speaks Spanish. And then, you have pockets of French. But even when you look at the Caribbean, the majority of the people speak English, the majority of people speak Spanish, and then you have some parts that speak French. You have some parts that speak
Portuguese
Dutch
and Portuguese
Yeah,
and Brazil. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the outlier. You know,
That's the outlier. They're the exception. Yeah.
And so, you know, like it doesn't work. It don't work. And when you get into trying to understand, you know, what the purpose of this is for, are we just gonna move back to where and to do what? Right? Because even like they always talk about, we can go to Liberia. Well, Liberia as a country was founded. It was like America's colony in Africa. And it was founded as a place to send Black American freedmen back to Africa. Right? The reason the capital is Monrovia is named after President James Monroe.
Yep.
The first president of Liberia was a freedman from Virginia. Right? You can look all this stuff up. And they had a class system there, even where the freed, and I think it exists even today, the freed, the descendants of freedmen who came from America and moved to Liberia still consider themselves superior to the native Africans who, because like I've tried for years to look up and see like what tribes, what people lived in Liberia prior to America colonizing, and I haven't been able to find anything. Like I haven't been able to find a name of people. I got a homeboy. His parents are from Sierra Leone. He was born here, and so like they have a very similar like history, Sierra Leone, but they were European controlled, and so like you know, when you look at like even Liberia's flag, that's an American flag. That's why it looks like that. And so like we've done this, we've seen this happen, and it doesn't benefit anybody. Now, if we saw some kind of like you know, FBA Tariq, they always talk about tangibles. If we had some kind of tangible situation where like, yeah, you know, we have citizenship, this XYZ African country has granted us citizenship, that still wouldn't necessarily satisfy any cultural connection, but it would give you citizenship and so far as whatever you could do with it. But that wouldn't mean like, oh yeah, my people from this country, because let's say you don't have any Ghanaian ancestry or DNA, and you got Ghanaian citizenship, you know, how does that satisfy this connection to get back to Africa? Because what you do is you trivialize and you reduce everybody's cultural experiences and cultural heritage and history to just blanket black, right? That would be like saying I'm a Pan-Asian. Well, who's in Asia? You got Chinese, Korean, Japanese, right? But then you got Indians. Like, don't nobody think about Indians or people from the Middle East. That's Asia too. You know what I'm saying? So you have all these different people over here, and because everybody's dark skinned, we just assume y'all all the same people, and you're not. You know, you're not.
Yeah, it is. I was gonna say it's even a little deeper than that, there, because like with Pan-Africanism, is the concept that we unite around being black, or is the concept we unite around being African? Because when we're talking about who's African, that exceeds race. It's beyond black Bantu looking people. We start looking at the north, and we now talking about Arabic, potentially Persian descent, Middle Eastern looking Africans, and that would be like the Somalis and other folks that we could say clearly has a different, distinct look from normal black people who are of West African and Central descent due to the slave trade that has occurred. And so, yeah, I think that's something else that isn't even factored in.
Yeah, I think they talk about it sometimes, man. But yeah, go ahead, Steph. Would you want to say something, man?
Well, I was going to say Elon Musk just bought Twitter. So somebody made a joke.
They keep saying it.
Yeah, they say he's the first African American bought Twitter now. So, I mean, and then when you get down to the genetics, right? We all admit, if you accept the out of Africa theory to be true, which I think that's like settled science, everybody African if you go back far enough.
Right.
So, when do you say, okay, well, you African, but you're not African enough? Because even if you accept that Africans move to Europe and they move to Asia, like you could go watch videos of people of the Andaman Islands. You remember a couple years ago that missionary went to the Andaman Islands and got killed.
Right. That's in the Indian Ocean, right?
Yeah. Those people dark. They dark.
Those are black people. Those are black people. Yeah.
But they share.
They don't call them black.
Yeah, but they share similar genetic markers to Japanese people.
Yep, the Asian,
you know what I'm saying? Like they have those phenotypic markers, those genetic markers. I guess it would be genotype, not phenotype. Those genotypic markers. It's like DA2 or something with Japanese people, with like East Asian. And so like you could see a connection where those people came out, and I don't know why they stayed there and how they, happened to continue to be the same way. But if we understand that, then our Japanese people African, they eat okra. Where they get okra from? Okra don't come from Japan, do it? Because we've accepted that okra comes from West Africa, don't it?
I mean, that's the thing. Like, even when we're talking about establishing a Black American identity, everybody at this point, like Haitians, Jamaicans, we accept those as new ethnic identities. But when it comes to the Black American or the African American or the freedman, there is a specific need to tell us you are African. And I think, when we're talking about that Pretendian movement, they were disconnected with that so much that they like, you know what? We Indians, we ain't African. Whereas us, we get it. We have African descent, but can we still be our own ethnic group? Because to Stedman's point, all of these different bloodlines from different African nations, we don't know the history or a specific tribal dialect. We are American as apple pie at this point. So again, can we at least have our own distinction? And I think Pan-Africans, we start getting into this fight as far as like who's more of a Black revolutionary, the person that's willing to embrace this identity of like, the continent and, saying we're going to fight all white supremacy around the globe. Or is it this person that's in America who's saying, I'm a Black American, I identify with the country that oppressed me, but at the same time, my goal is to improve this country and improve my family in this country. And again, I think we're seeing like clashes between these two dialects to the point where the leading Pan-African organizations and movements and even key speakers have spoken on this issue, but the way that they've treated, like, let's say the freedman side has been dishonest, or at least in a sense, like harmful, because they've tried to spread a message where we're like xenophobic, white supremacists, or even maybe too native like. So I got a clip. I got a clip I want to play from Ron Daniels. He's of Cobra. He's like one of the leaders. And so when I play this clip, guys, I do want to get y'all input, but it's only 2 to 3 minutes. But it's the Pan-Africans speaking on the current American energy that they see, like from grassroots Black activists, as it relates to reparations and as it relates to other political topics. So let me
before you go into that. Before you go into that, so as I showed my tattoo, right? I have a tattoo of Africa in the red RBG colors, man. I feel, I've personally, just a full disclosure, I've gone to Africa about 5 times. Recently, I was there for a couple of months. Just previously, I've had children who are of Ethiopian and Black American mix. And I don't plan on stop going to Africa, honestly. Ultimately, but again, I think you can believe in both. I believe you can think and say, hey, recognize that I have a unique ethnic identity that's tied to America. You know what I mean? And I have ancestral claims to a continent, and I feel like you should be able to exploit both. As a Black American, we got ripped away. You know what I'm saying? Or freedmen, we were ripped away from our continent. And whereas we can use our money to extrapolate some wealth or some position for us, in Africa, whatever that may be, as a citizen, but yet and still and then doing what a lot of these foreigners do, they come to the U.S. to make the money. Our dollars spend better over in their home countries. And then once they set up and get a bunch of different things in there, then now that money over in those home countries are supporting their lifestyle here in America. So I say, hey man, we citizens of the world, we should be able to do both. I fight for the justice here in the States, because that's my home. That's my home. I have to get in and fit in when I'm going to someone else's country. You know what I mean? To the extent that they allow me to get in and fit in at the same time. But I will never give up who I am. Because ultimately you believe me, they do not look at us as Africans. They tell you all the time, the natives over there, a lot of them, they don't have no idea of even anything about our history. You know, they think that we're like, maybe a grandmother removed from slavery or something. Because they're like, well, where did you really come from? I'm like, I mean, I know through some DNA evidence, and that's based on whatever the people tell me. I mean, I gotta trust them. I can't denote myself. You know what I mean? But when I go and I explain, I say, I'm American. I could trace my earliest ancestor, being born around 1812. That's 200 something years. You know what I mean? Half of these people's countries weren't even established until the 60s. And then even so, like one girl, I mean, I'm like, okay, so tell me who your grandparents are. You know what I mean? They didn't even have legal documents and stuff. You know what I mean? Like they can't tell me. They're like, oh, and then also is, there'll be tribes, they move across borders and stuff like that. She's like, yeah, I'm not from Kenya because I went to Kenya. And she's Luo. And her people originally came out of a different country, a whole different area. You know what I mean? Yep. So she, so it's like, hey, man.
I mean, and that's interesting too. You pointed out, but it's because it's like through the slave process, we do have a documented history of our ancestors. That to be quite frank, the oral history of Africa, like it doesn't cover like their grandparents' names, where they were born.
And this is recent. Recent. I'm talking to people who are younger than me, so they're a generation younger than me, right? They're millennials, Gen Zs, okay. And see, over like I don't know how many times I ran into women or people, but mainly women that were to tell me like, hey, they had to change their birth certificate, like and so much of corruption and so much, you know what I mean? And I'd be like, okay, well, your name is different from your passport, from your birth certificate. It's somebody that was born in 1990 something. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I had someone that I know, you know what I mean? She only had one picture of her mother. She was born in 89. You know what I'm saying? Her mother, you know what I mean? Like her mother could have, her mother's no longer alive, but she literally only had one. She's like, yeah, they weren't taking pictures like that back then. I mean, what you mean, the 80s?
Yeah, right. I work with a guy, bro. I work with a guy from Cameroon. And I always mess with him. He's born in like 83, I think he said.
Right.
Or 84. And I always mess with him because I'll be like, when is your birthday? And he always make fun of Inkster, so I mess with him. Mm-hmm. And I say, oh, you three moon cycles and shit. Because he don't know. I said they just line y'all up in the village and give everybody a birthday. I said, when it's enough for y'all, they just give y'all all one birthday. You born today, you born today. Like you be 10. You actually be 10 if you be standing next to a 2-month-old. Y'all have the same birthday,
Same birthday.
But that's how it is. He was like, because his tribe. He's I forget which tribe he's from, but it's in Cameroon. Mm-hmm. And I found it, so he was like tripped out because he said I tell him more stuff about Africa than he knows about it, like politically, and because he don't know none of this shit. He said they don't really teach us. They teach us book stuff. We don't learn about our history. We don't learn about the political situation, and so I said, somebody was like, Fubi, how long? That's his name, Fubi. He said, how long does it take to get from the big city in Cameroon? I forget the name now. To where your village is. And I said, oh, it takes 13 moon cycles. Because what you sense of time, bro? You just walking. He said he got to walk to different villages. He got to like do all this hiking. And it's true. Like you can make fun of Inkster, bro, but you from there. Like I don't care. My people have had to fight in the country that has been trying to kill them. This your own country. Y'all fucked up. You know what I'm saying? So,
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that, Stan, because the other issue that I got, like with Pan-African, and I'm definitely in the same page as like Gerard. Like my stepmom, South African. I got connections to people that are African, and I haven't been to the continent, but definitely see myself going someday. But I'm like Gerard. I'm someone who would put my lineage first, and then when it comes to working with all the Black people, I think that that's within the cards for sure. And then, like he said, taking advantage of both connections. I'm not opposed to that at all either. I think. When we're talking about Pan-Africanism, though, it's this romanticization that Africa doesn't have the same issues as America, politically speaking, and that when we're talking about Black prosperity, if a Black American was to just get up and move there, apparently we would have the success that we've been missing out in America. And I believe that that's a total false portrayal of what's going on there, given the fact that they're leaving those countries to come here because they said we need the better opportunity. So
I'm gonna tell you a story.
Which one is the better opportunity, Gerard? You tell us. Yeah.
Hey man, I'm gonna tell you a story. Like I said, I'm a person that is actively planning on, you know what I'm saying, like living in Africa at some point in time down the road, permanently, maybe some years from now. So anyways, give an example about stuff that you have to deal with over in these other countries as a native person. And it is not, all, whatever. It's not all butterflies and things of that nature, right? So there was this guy who, so I was staying at a place for like 2 months, man. Had Airbnb. It was in, these studio apartments that was ran by a company. And so and they had several different ones like all across, Nairobi. So the cool thing about this place was that they actually had, little shops. So on the ground floor, right on the ground floor, they had, a laundromat, they had little shops or whatever you go to, and so there's one guy, there was a liquor store, right there in the front of the place. And sometimes I will partake in, getting me something to drink every once in a while. And of course, whenever time anybody hears me talk or even look, even my phenotype, man, they know that I'm American. They know I'm from somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? So there's no flat blackness. You know what I mean? And another thing too, they call, and in fact, they, and there's different terms throughout different parts of Africa, but the, Eastern Africa or the Swahili part, right? Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, they all speak Swahili. Freaking the term for Black Americans are, or just somebody, a Black person that's from overseas, right? Overseas, you know what I mean? Is Mzungu, which basically, and it'll translate this into white man. It's not foreigner. It's not a foreigner. You know what I'm saying? It literally means white man. But anyways, man. So me and the guy became real cool or what have you. See me, jovial type of person. Man, I saw him get shaken down, dude, by the police. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like I saw him like I witnessed it for the first time, like somebody get shaken down. Right. You know what I mean? So it was nighttime and
dirty cops though, that's what you're saying? Like dirty
was that
dirty cops type vibe?
Yeah, it was absolutely, you knew exactly what was going on. Yeah. Someone was like, hey, he getting shaken down. I'm like, I know what it was, you know what I'm saying? Because it was nighttime. And the guys came up and they were like some sort of like different. They were different than the normal police officers who were the normal police officers wear like almost like a blue uniform. They got, the little white hat, kind of like how the military, you know what I'm saying? Dress uniform, stuff like that. That's your normal. These guys were like paramilitary, you know what I mean? They had, in fact, I was like, are they Army? They were like, no, that's not Army. These are like the special, like, I guess, like the SWAT type guys, you know what I'm saying? I guess. They supposed to be, rolling around at night. You know what I mean? So the guy came up, because you could hear the radio squawking in the back. You know, and they had a radio communication. Again, he reminded me of being a soldier, to be honest with you. So, they're talking to Swahili, and he was like, "Yeah, okay." He's like, "Listen, I'm gonna get to you. He's like, let me serve my customers first, but just give me a second. You know what I mean? And I knew what was up, dude. They was coming there to get either their money or to get some free booze or whatever it was. You know what I'm saying? And it was just a part of doing business. Right. It was a part of him doing business, man. You know what I mean? And it was just like, wow, dog. And now imagine you a foreigner, right? Coming into that aspect. You don't think that's not going to happen to you? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? And I want to do business, but you know what I'm saying? But you better get with the locals. You better get with somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just how it is. Yeah, but go ahead.
Gotta know what's going on over there, like basically.
Yeah, for real.
And to that point, I think that's something that's like not brought up. A lot of times in these conversations, like I've heard a lot about the, just talking to other Pan-Africans. Black Americans posed, well, what's Africa doing for us? What can what the continent doing so that we can go back to establish these connections? And a lot of people like to bring up programs like what Ghana got going on, and people who actually live in Ghana, open up their mouth and they saying, yo, that's a tourist attraction. They're not looking for the poorest of Black Americans, people who ain't got no skill sets, no nothing, to just come over here. The people that's on welfare in America here, they don't want them there. And they don't have a place there politically.
No,
speaking.
They don't, bro.
So exactly.
They don't.
So yeah.
They want people to come. If you come with the money, you come with something, employ people, you know what I mean? You're going to be bringing assets to their countries or whatever. Or, of course, dude, you're probably going to have a better landing spot. But if you don't but the average of us don't have money like that to travel. That's why we don't travel.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That's why we don't travel in any large numbers or what have you. And we don't have the money like that. You know what I mean? We don't, dude.
Yeah. Now, let me go ahead and cue this video up. But this video, guys, just for those, I just want y'all, because what I'm going to bring up next is tied to this, but I just want people to keep in mind that when we're looking at this current Pan-African movement, at least the mainstream movement that we see in American media, the one that we see that's portrayed as it relates to reparations, we're dealing with three main organizations. I think that's IBW21, NARC, and then Cobra, and they're all affiliated or associated in a sense. But these groups, ever since the induction of HR 40, they've been told in the fact that they're the champions of this bill, HR 40, and that they laid the groundwork and they worked with all of the folks, who needed to be worked with, from John Conyers to reparationist Ray Jenkins out of Detroit, to get that bill to where it is today. And a lot of people in the freedmen space, we've been pointing out that the bill is literally where it's at today because of the grassroots efforts that we've seen over these last few years. But when we look at, groups like NARC and Cobra, the messages, like I said, that are being pushed is this over-romanticization, and then it's this blatant attack against Black Americans who actually do care about our political reality in America. And so I'm going to play this clip, and then I want to reference a speech from Fred Hampton as it relates to Pan-Africans, because I do believe the current Pan-African movement is just a bunch of sellouts who are specifically loyal to the Democratic agenda. But let me go ahead and play that for you guys.
Conversation about that as well. Nativism is a kind of national chauvinism and that kind of anti-integrationism that we see, the MAGA people doing. I mean, that's Trump stuff, right? Make America great again and, scapegoating immigrants and so forth, which is in principle wrong. We are not to do that to any human beings. Within the African American community, if we were to be truthful, there are some people who really are kind of resentful. I mean, there's too many Nigerians up in here. I mean, what are them Caribbeans coming over here taking our jobs? So there's now this notion of having a distinct African American African identity to distinguish us from them. I've even heard this in conversation because they are taking our jobs. We need to have, when we talk about programs, these jobs are for the African American identity folk, and them Nigerians and them Ghanaians and them Jamaicans, they don't get them. Now, come on. We are not going, at least from my perspective, that's I mean, if we have issues in our communities, I mean, we have something called a Pan-African Unity Dialogue in New York, where there are sometimes tensions and issues that we need to talk through. But we will solve them as African people among ourselves. We should not allow ourselves to be divided on the basis of, we're going to say that our sisters and brothers, as African people, that we're going to exclude them or somehow label them in such a way that they can't get certain benefits. So I think fundamentally I would appeal to my sisters and brothers to think about that. We have a bigger tent than that. I'm not saying they're not issues that we don't need to discuss and resolve, but we can resolve them by talking to each other. And we certainly don't need to adopt some right wing, and there's some suspicion that some of this is coming, and some people may unwittingly be buying into it from some right wing sources who have this kind of conservative position, and therefore they can recruit Black people on the basis of grievance and resentment against our own brothers and sisters. I hope we don't fall into that trap.
Can we say something? Or you want us to watch more of it?
No, that was it. Just up to 29 minutes. Yep, go ahead.
Hey, I'm about to post this link. Play this right quick.
All right.
Play this link I just posted. I got a video I'm trying to load up. It's these people that are there. I believe they're in East Africa. They're from Virginia. They're real light-skinned black people, and they live in Africa now. And I like them. I think it's only 2 minutes long.
You finna paste it in the StreamYard?
Well, I'm putting it up in the Google Drive right now.
Oh, okay.
I'm loading.
All right.
But first, I just want to say, man, these folks is just, in my opinion, they're just, they're paid opposition. They're completely, totally paid opposition. They're compromised individuals because Roz, remember she did that show and had Ray Wimbush. She was doing an interview with Ray Wimbush. And so he was saying, well, if you had two sisters and one went to one place and one went to the other place, on the transatlantic slave trade, like, dog, that's 200 years ago or 400 years ago. If you had two sisters on the transatlantic slave trade, those children could be anywhere. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere. We no longer related genetically. You could marry them kids and have healthy, normal children. You see what I'm saying?
Bro, you don't even know. To go off what you're saying, you got multiple people. Look, only one generation above me, right? I'm sorry, 2 generations. My grandmother generation. She had like 8 brothers and sisters on some crazy number, right? You know what I'm saying, bro? I don't know none of them people like that from down there, man. You know what I mean? Hey, man, I got some cousins. We haven't seen each other for like years, bro. These are my grandmother's little brother's granddaughters. We haven't seen them. I'm saying we just hung out like before I went to Kenya, bro. I hadn't seen them since like way back when, bro. We live in the same city. What do you mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you talking about?
But that's what I'm telling you. Like, they can't be serious. There's no way that you're serious. There's no way that we gonna have a Pan-African council. Like, motherfucker, I love books. I love reading. Every time we do a show, I try to bring up a book. Y'all read too fucking much. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't live in reality.
It's about a Pan-African council.
What are you talking about? With the kufi on and all this bullshit, you look like a clown. You look as crazy as Dane Calloway wearing the headdress.
Exactly. Hey, talk about we have put together a council in New York and settle our issues there. So is that what y'all did over the last 60 years when the freedmen got excommunicated out of economic opportunities in New York? And now the only black people that have opportunities are not freedmen? Yeah, right. Who own the properties is not free. What are we talking about here? Where was the Pan-African unity? Where's the discussion?
Where was it?
Where's the discussion from the box out to say we're not going to let these natives get boxed out? Let's make sure we are working together against the whites and Asians. That didn't happen. And so again, to y'all point, I found like it's fantasy and it's fiction. And then even to your point, Stedman, like with the sellout part of it, like I can understand what he's saying, like with the like African immigrant bashing. I think, when we're talking about our community specifically, we can recognize that there's some form of xenophobic rhetoric that exists in all black ethnic communities. You just can't say it's our community. Now, when we accept that fact, we can say, yeah, there probably is some black Americans who might say something bad about black immigrants. And it's the same shoe on the other foot for the immigrants, like they're saying some bad stuff about black Americans. When we can accept that fact, we can move on and say, all right, yes, as a people, we can work together. But what we do realize is that we all have different political needs. And so, like, as it relates to immigration, again, that's not a topic that black Americans are just openly willy-nilly for. But Pan-Africans, because their connection to the continent and the idea that we can increase the black race by importing more black people, so to say, and that'll help us politically in this country. Having that idea, they are for immigration. And so they have to find ways to justify it and angle it in a way that says, black Americans, we shouldn't be so nativist or we shouldn't be so Trump-like or right-wing and talk about immigration because our African brothers and sisters, they're not taking nothing from us. That could be true depending on what state you're living in, like California. But the fact is, immigration still harms black Americans. And like he said, there are certain political topics that we do need to talk about. But when it comes to, I'll say, including other black ethnic groups into that conversation, Pan-Africans put the guards up. And they're like, hold on now, you're not going to classify African brothers and sisters the same way we do these Latinos and Asians, even though they're coming for the exact same reason as those groups of people, for a better opportunity, and because American imperialism fucked over their country. It's the same exact reason. And they established the same exact enclaves.
Exactly, same enclaves, and many of them don't mess with us. You know what I'm saying? I can understand if they were molding and marrying into our families, and you know what I'm saying, we becoming some, unified African, freedmen type of lineage, and it's all of that. And bro, they don't mess with us, man. They don't mess with us, bro. They move into, you know what I'm saying, they move to the white areas, bro. You know what I'm saying? There's a Sudanese. My ex-wife is Ethiopian, but she or Eritrean. I'm sorry, she's Eritrean. Might as well say Ethiopian. But anyways, they can't even get along with each other, right? But nonetheless, and then with some sort of African unity. You know what I mean? Like for real, there's a civil war going on in Ethiopia right now. You know what I'm saying? Outside of Eritrea, that was ended. But anyway, but during all the conflict between Eritrea and Ethiopia back in like the 80s or whatever, our people, you know what I'm saying, our family left. More became they lived in a refugee camp in Sudan. They ended up settling in Sudan. Okay, you know what I mean. So she speaks fluent Arabic. You know what I mean, because that's what Sudan speaks, and then they were also Muslim as well. So there's a Sudanese community out in Canton, and she lives out in Canton now, so she could be closer to that. You know what I'm saying, that community. If it wasn't for her, I would have never known that there's a Sudanese community at all in the Canton area. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't stay, very, some do. I'm not gonna say all. There's a as far as Southeast Michigan, there's a large West African population, Senegal, Gambian, and I see them in the Muslim community because I'm Muslim as well, so therefore. They do come to the masjid, so on and so forth. So, in that sense, we actually have a imam that is from Senegal. So there are some mixings of that. Well, for the most part, man, that's a rare occurrence, man. Most of the time, everyone's even separate. Even, even within the same, either whether it be Christian dominations, whatever. Like we don't, even Caribbean, here's another thing too that always kind of kills me whenever I hear this anecdotal talking about the African booty scratcher, right? I'm like, how many? I don't even know. Here we in the blackest city of all cities, right? I can't tell you one African that I freaking grew up with. You know what I'm saying? That I grew up with. I was only until I went into Florida. You know what I'm saying? Or even Caribbean person, right? You know what I mean? So we calling each other African booty scratchers, not freaking no doggone African. But they always use that as like, oh, you guys are against us, y'all made fun of us, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, there's not that many even black communities that even come up against, or there's very small, maybe in the DC, Minneapolis, New York. But outside of that, most freedmen live around freedmen and white people and Spanish people, if that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not our existence, man. How a whole doggone continent of people, I'm saying, I won't say continent, but those who come from, these areas are so offended about African booty scratches. And I'm like, man, nobody, like what? But that's always the common thing that's talked about, bro. It's like, come on, man. Black people not even around y'all like that because y'all don't want to be around us like that. Really. Anyway.
No.
Man, it's getting late, bro.
I know it's getting late. So I know we got to cover the Bootstrapper. But Stead, did you have your clip that you wanted to play? Because
the one from YouTube is in the comments, but the other one ain't uploaded yet. So I guess we're gonna have to scrap that one because we'll have to try to show it some other time. But let me play the one you got from. You want me to play this one from YouTube, right?
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna share this one, and then I'm gonna read off Gerard. I'm gonna read off what Fred Hampton said specifically about Pan-Africans, and then we can jump into that Bootstrapper segment and start wrapping up from there. Let me go ahead and share this. All right, Stead, let me know when you can see it up on the screen.
First of all, we must internalize the flatulation of the matter by transmitting the effervescence of the Indonesian proximity in order to further segregate the crux of my venereal infection. Now, if I may retain my liquids here for one moment, I'd like to continue the redundance of my quote-unquote intestinal tract. See, because to preclude on the issue of world domination would only circumcise the revelation that reflects the aphrodisiac symptoms which now perpetrates the Jericho's activation. So,
I think we got it. Yeah, it was a bunch of mumbo jumbo, man.
Right.
That's Dane Calloway and my man, both.
Yeah.
Right. That's all, bro. Because what are you talking about? Nothing you're doing is making no tangible changes in our community. Oh, you don't want to treat the Africans? Where is your brother or sister arm on the continent saying that shit for us? And then like you said,
go ahead, Steve. You got it.
It would be more sincere if they said, hey, America's oppressing all these people. Everybody need reparations. But you just go arbitrarily base it off race? Right?
Mm-hmm.
They beating everybody up. They just ran out of bombs. They bombing Somalia now. They bombing Yemen right now. They messing up South America. They messing up Central America. They trying to mess up the Caribbean. But only the African. You would have more of my respect if you was just trying to do it for people who was destroyed by the American Empire. Full stop. What are you talking about? What you're saying to me, they all ops. This conspiracy brother now. They're all ops. There's no way that those people have any sincere, good, best interest for freedmen, for Black Americans in mind at all, because it's about you giving something up. That's at the bottom of it. You fought, you marched, you got beat, you got lynched, right? The Civil Rights Act, Martin Luther King, and I believe Malcolm X specifically, talked about having more Black immigrants come into this country. That was a condition of reworking the Immigration Act. Allowing for more immigrants from Africa and Black countries. What more do I have to give?
Now let me slam dunk it, Stead. So this is the last statement I want to read on this, and we're done with the Pan-Africans. So the last thing I want to read is a speech from Fred Hampton, and it's called "It's a Class Struggle." God damn it! And we're gonna skip down. Now we know, Fred Hampton, he has some Marxist beliefs and all of that good jazz, but we're gonna look specifically on his comments as it relates to Pan-Africans in America. He says this specifically: the Minister of Education of the party, Raymond Masai Hewitt, and the Chief of Staff, David Hillard, just got back from Africa visiting Eldridge Cleaver. And they said niggas over there will never be wearing the type of garb that some of these Africanized fools over here wear. They're wearing rags, or either they're wearing nothing. And if you want to dress like some African people, then you ought to dress like the Angolans or the people in Mozambique. These are the people that are doing something. You need to dress like these people that are in liberation struggles. But nah, you don't want to get that Africanized, because as soon as you have to dress like somebody from Angola or Mozambique, then after you put on whatever you put on, it can be anything from Rabs to something from Saks Fifth Avenue. You got to put on some bandoliers and some AR-15s and some 38s. You've got to put on some Smith & Wessons and some Colt 45s, because that's what they're wearing in Mozambique. And any nigga that runs around here telling you that when your hair is long and you got your dashiki on and you got your bobos and all these sandals and all this type of action, then you're a revolutionary. And anybody that doesn't look like you, he's not. That man has to be out of his mind. He said, because we know that political power doesn't flow from the sleeve of a daishiki. We know that political power flows from the barrel of a gun. And that's true. It has to be true. We know that in order to be able to talk about power, that you've got to be able to talk about what you got to be able to talk about is the ability to control and define a phenomena and make it act in a desired manner. That means that if you can't control and define a phenomena and make it act in a desired manner, then you don't even have any dealings with power. You don't know, and you probably never will know what power is. And what we know what power is, and we know who's doing harm to our people, the enemy. So it says, and everybody wants to talk about the pork chops will tell you in a minute. The pigs don't want you to get black. They don't want you to get no black studies programs. They don't want you to wear no dashikis. They don't want you to learn about the motherland and what roots to eat of the ground. They don't want that, because as soon as you get that, as soon as you go back to the 11th century culture, you'll be all right. Check the people who went back to the 11th century culture. Check the people that are wearing dashikis and bobos and think that that's going to free them. Check all of these people and find out where they're located. Find out the addresses of their office, write them a letter, and ask them if in the last year, how many times have their office been attacked? And then write any Black Panther Party anywhere in the United States of America, anywhere in Babylon, and ask them how many times the pigs have attacked them. Then when you get your estimation of both of them, then you figure out what the pigs don't like, and that's when you figure out what the pigs don't like. And this is coming from Fred Hampton, talking specifically about dashiki wearing Negroes who didn't get fed, who didn't get attacked by COINTELPRO, who didn't get labeled enemies by the FBI. We got these same people today calling us white supremacists, COINTELPRO, Nazi, far-right, immigration, whatever. And they
let me bring
this up. Go ahead, Steve. You got it.
So the Us movement was a oppositional movement to the Panthers in California, founded by Ron Karenga, right?
Exactly. Multicultural.
He worked for the LAPD and the FBI.
Got two Panthers killed.
Right, Bunchy Carter, and I can't remember the other brother's name. And at UCLA, Judge Joe Brown talked about it. He said that's why he'll never celebrate Kwanzaa. It's a book you can find about. His last name is Talmadge. It's hard to find the book. I've been trying, you know me. And the book is called The Glass House Tapes. He breaks down how Karenga was working with the LAPD and the FBI, bro. This is known. This is well known.
And
that these people who
he mentioned Bunchy Carter. He mentioned the fact that Bunchy Carter was murdered in this speech. So go ahead, Stay. You got it.
John Huggins. So you can read it.
No, it says, we've been attacked 3 times since June. We know what the pigs don't like. We've got people run out of our country by the hundreds. We know what the pigs don't like. Our Minister of Defense is in jail. Our chairman is in jail. Our Minister of Information is in exile. Our treasurer, the first member of the party, is dead. The Deputy Minister of Defense and Deputy Minister of Information, Bunchy, Al Prentice, Bunchy Carter, and John Huggins from Southern California, murdered by some pork chops talking about a BSU program. We know what the pigs don't like.
And so that's what I'm saying. So people now, you want to, Kwanzaa, this Kwanzaa. Ron Karenga's still alive. He's 70-some years old, almost 80-some years old. He's still alive. These people who sold out the revolutionaries, who tried to get real freedom, real justice, and things changed around the world, but especially for the freedmen here in America, they still alive. Everybody that got something moving is dead. Malcolm, Martin, Medgar, Huey, right? Now, Bobby Seale's still alive, but I don't know how he made it because he was about that life. Right? Fred Hampton, dead. But when you look at these people, Ron Karenga, look how nice that office for NARC looked. That dude looked like he could have been at a Goldman Sachs.
Yeah,
where you getting that money from? Where you getting that money from?
And to that Ron Karenga point you made earlier, that these was the people in the 60s who were referred to as multiculturals. And so I heard this from some folks who's giving us this information that they didn't call themselves Pan-Africans in the 60s. They called themselves multiculturalists. And eventually that term Pan-Africanism became adopted by those multiculturalists. But again, these people were never attacked, never targeted by the FBI, and they still work closely with the Democratic establishment today.
And they work with the FBI. I mean, they work with them.
It's very interesting. And when you're looking at corporate today, white America, when we're talking about Black History Month, it's all pointed back to these multiculturalists, these people who where, you know, that Fred Hampton's talking about, go back to the 11th century and that's all they needed to be free. Why are they still not free? Like, why these people haven't been attacked? Where's the revolution? And again, you know, I just found this speech fascinating. Somebody shared it with me like a week or two ago. But I think this is the nail in the coffin for Pan-Africanism. Like, why weren't they exclusively attacked to the same extent as the leaders of some of these other movements? And you have to question it. You have to question it.
The two main groups of people who get the most airtime when it comes to the reparations dialogue is the people who are against it on the right. That's black. So your Larry Elders, your Burgess Owens, the congressman from Utah, people like him. What's his name? That cat, he Puerto Rican. I don't even remember his name. Talking about you don't need it. And then the people that on the pro reparations side is people like Narkin and Carver who never gonna get that bill passed because what they advocating for don't make sense. It doesn't make sense on any legal level. You're not going to advocate for a policy from a country that benefits every single human being in the world of a certain group if that country don't have no ties specifically to that oppression. That video did upload to the group me. It's in the I mean, you know, if you want to play it, it's like 2 minutes. It's short, but it just shows you how different. It's not the group me. It's in the drive, the Freedman Collective drive.
All right. Well, let's pass it up because Gerard got that. He got some clips. Okay. He gonna play on the Bootstrapper.
So yeah, you know, but it's just it's we have to be more aware of what's going on. They just like look at Black Lives Matter. Them people getting filthy rich. They getting filthy rich playing on our sympathies. You know, millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And we're in a situation where, you know, it's no different than what you look at how they were sold out to the Democratic Party. It's no different than what you see with the Pan-African movement. Whatever they can do, like I posted that thing a while, we read it off, how you continue to fracture movements. That's what they doing, man.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Gerard, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still with you, man.
All
I'm
right.
with this.
Okay.
For real quick, for quickness, I was gonna say brevity. That's what I'm trying to think of the word. For quickness, man, we're just gonna cover anti-Daniels real quick. Let me share my screen. I'm sharing my screen. Okay, hold on. Okay, I'm sharing the entire screen, so it should change with me. Okay, so the next person that we're gonna get in this dissection of the enemies of reparations, right? We're gonna come down to the bootstrapper, right? Hey, I got it, you go get it. You know what I mean, type of thing. I found this kind of fascinating. This particular person's name is Anton Daniels. He has a pretty popular web presence on YouTube and Black YouTube. He's part of the Leaf Network. You can see here he actually has a Millionaire Morning show. He has a couple of different channels or what have you. And he basically pretty much is preaching like, financial literacy and if you stay down and invest your money or whatever, then you can live a life free of whatever you want. Where the reality of the situation is that his particular path to financial stability and prosperity was quite unique and is not easily duplicated and replicated. So here, I'm going to just give you some of his spin where he's talking about how, 50,000 ain't enough. You need to make more money or else you'll be left behind. And I find this kind of like, kind of disingenuous, to kind of give this type of, advice to freedmen, man, when we know our wealth condition is so bad. You know what I mean? So this is the wealth quintiles, and we break it down in 4-5 areas, right? The U.S. population by wealth, and we can see here the richest 20%. You know what I'm saying? Has a good portion of our wealth, man. You know what I mean? And notice where the rest of us is poor. The poor is 20%. We're in here. You know, this is our race. You know what I mean? This is our race, dude. And it's just kind of crazy, man. It says there's enormous disparity between wealth of black and white median households, right? The median household has a net worth of $171,000, 10 times the net worth of the black median household at $17,000, right? Black households are, and this is the median, meaning that you're in this middle one right here. So he's telling us, right? He's saying to us, Anton is saying, hey, you know, 50,000 ain't cutting. Okay, so let's listen to a few of his advice and the callousness and how he's laying this out, man. And we'll go, and then we'll cover another clip where he actually gets challenged about him being a fake guru or him kind of selling hope or whatever on YouTube.
You're falling behind, and you don't know.
Is it playing?
That you're falling behind, but by the time you realize that you're falling behind, it's already going to be too late. And you know what's going to happen? They're going to be priced out. Think about it. When you go to the grocery store, your money don't stretch as far anymore, right? When you go to the gas station, it costs you more to fill up. Yep, sure does. Meanwhile, I just read today that Lamborghini has over a 12-month waiting list for any of the vehicles, unless you want to get ahead, that you can pay between $50,000 and $100,000 to be able to get a new Lamborghini. That means that the rich is getting richer and the poor is getting poorer because you think you know how money works. The biggest problem is that you need a bigger shovel. You need to figure out how it is that you can make more money, because the way that you're doing it now, it's not going to work. It's not going to fly. As long as you continue to compare yourself. Let me go ahead and walk along this main road. I haven't walked on a main road.
So that's enough of that. You know, I mean, if you choose to, you could, you know, look this up later on. You know, we're trying to, for brevity, quickness, we're going to go here. So here he's brought on to another YouTube show. This guy name is JT Pocket Watching with JT, and here, you know, Pocket Watching with JT. He's a YouTuber that I know of, that I like. I'm subscribed to him. I'm not part of his I'm not part of his membership, but I like Pocket Watching with JT because he gets out here and he's like, you know, because a lot of people are selling the dream and the hope to our people, to freedmen, man, and they're selling this dream and this hope that, you know, hey, you know, if you just do this, then, you know, this will lead you to this, or financial responsibility or what have you, right? You know, or I'm sorry, not responsibility, but financial freedom or what have you. And a lot of this stuff, man, is nebulous because it's really trying to get you to buy courses and things of that nature, you know, secret, you know, some sort of secret plan that they got. Like, hey, if you do it, look at me. I have, you know, the Lamborghini, you know, this, the that, the watch, the so on and so forth. You know what I mean? And this could be you if you buy mine, $19.99, you know what I'm saying, course or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And I'm just giving examples. A lot of times the prices are way higher than that. So Anton has been accused of being a quote unquote fake financial guru. And so Pocket Watch, Pocket Watching with JT, right? JT, he's a certified public accountant. And he, you know, and he does many videos about different people. Some people that have been on the Breakfast Club, like Earn Your Leisure, you know, Tony the Closer, you know what I'm saying? He breaks it down because he knows he has the financial wherewithal to see all the smoke and mirrors. So I've jumped to this clip because you have somebody that's actually challenging what, you know, Anton is saying and what he's doing, and explaining how, hey, you know what you're saying, you know, and how you got to where you got is not adding up. You know what I mean? Based on the methodology that you're preaching, that, you know, hey, just be on the grind. You know what I'm saying? Live down for 10 years, and then you will have financial freedom. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, oh yeah, okay. So
what's happening right now?
Right.
Ain't nobody got nothing on me. I'm Teflon Time, man. Listen, my people know that I'm certified, but we corrupt.
All right, first gen, what's going on?
All right, first off, thank you, JT, for joining us. Much respect to you. Anton, I find you entertaining. However, you know, there's some serious questions people have. The first thing is that you're using sign language to people who have valid questions. Bragging about who has the larger stack is childish.
Wait. What was the question?
Bragging about who has a larger stack is childish. You're not answering with logic. You're using childish rhetoric against people who have questions about your so-called rise to success. Can we pull up his LinkedIn profile and then you say W-2 is greater than your business success, and that's why you got your multi-millions? Yet you use the latter to boast about yourself as an authority figure on the internet. So it seems to be contradicting when you said the W-2 was the primary vehicle to how you have your multi-millions. But yet on the internet, you talk primarily about your past successful business experience when you're selling yourself out there.
It could be true at the same time.
Yeah, so can we pull your LinkedIn profile? The certificates that you shown earlier in the video, those from community college. So you didn't get a degree till 2016. And I find it hard to say that you had significant W-2 success in order to make yourself a multi-millionaire.
How haven't I?
And some of your income is actually public information because you used to work for a public university.
Correct.
So knowing the salary that I know, that I've seen, I'm not sure how that's translating to multi-million investment.
How haven't it?
Okay, so so there's a couple of claims you stated in your videos. You claimed you had a successful software company as you sold. I'm a senior engineer or something of that sort. So you're
worked my way up quickly got promoted and worked my way up to vice president user in American Bank.
That's only one job that I can work in corporate that's confirmed to be a big bag. The other jobs that you have in here, those are not big bags. So when you said your W-2 was the primary way for you to have your multi-millions, where
the W-2, wait. Let me explain it to you. Let me break it down for you. Don't overtalk me. Give me a second. The W-2 is the vehicle, the investment vehicle. Okay. The way in which we evaluate whether or not somebody is a millionaire is specifically by your net worth, which includes your property. It includes your real estate. It includes your assets. Any asset that you have contributes to your net worth. The primary vehicle that I used in order to propel myself, in order to be able to invest in all of these different things, is from my corporate position. You understand it now?
Okay, and so I'm not, so you don't know them about me, right? But I'm not a regular person, right? I'm a big league at a very young age. So I work in corporate.
What does that mean?
I work in finance. So you're talking, it's kind of cloudy, right? I know how you can leverage W-2 and 401k, multi-million investments, right? What was the investments that you claim to have made to get you multi-millions?
I just told you.
Okay, but it's like, real estate.
Hold on, wait. I'll give you another thing because I don't want this to be really, really drawn out. If you want to go and look at let me answer. If you want to go and look at some of my property, it is very publicly available on my channel.
All the roles, respectfully, especially the locality you're located in, they're not paying you a large sum of money. Stop capping.
What do you think I made at Comerica Bank?
You have one VP role that translates to multi-millions. Do you not understand how that's a disconnect?
And that I became a millionaire. Booming. We built an application that rivaled.
So this is where it really gets down to it. Is that okay? You know, he was being very. You could tell like the guy kept pressing him. Like, how no W-2? I'm not muted, am I?
No, I can hear you.
You can hear me, okay? How does your W-2 translate into these millions? Like, you know, and so basically, he's like, just the evidence that I have these millions is, you know, was proof positive that I got it, right? You know what I'm saying? And he's like, your inputs are matching your outputs, man. Like, this not making sense. In 13 years, that you know, there ain't no level of investing that you can do in 13 years to get you multi-millions, you know, by just investing into, you know, standard, you know, stocks, 401k, you know, standard, you know, instruments, financial instruments that are available to the, you know, working person, right? You know, if you even have a job that has that, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not possible to do that in 13 years. The crunch, what it got down to was that he was a software engineer, and him and some guys came up with an application and some other stuff. It was actually some sort of application that dealt with mixtapes. And they were able to sell that, and that's how he got his millions. You know what I'm saying? He might maybe, you know, he got some significant windfall from, you know, being bought out. No different than, you know, my man that Elon Musk with PayPal. You know what I'm saying? But that's not repeatable. You know what I mean? Like, you know, that's not something that you're gonna be able to do. So they kind of talked to this a little bit, and we could close it out after this.
Certain other mixtape sites.
JT
what we wind up doing was we wind up getting a lot of traction, but we wasn't one of the biggest sites. So what we wind up doing is we wind up selling out the company because we got a really good offer. We sold it to a bigger mixtape site. What they did was they folded our company and they used our technology and our software in order to build out their new site. That's exactly the type of company that we built. We built.
What is the company name?
And I cannot tell you that. That's the company that we built and sold. So specifically, it wasn't a web development company. It was an application that we sold, which is why I still own the web development company today.
You said we, so those multiple partners in the prior business that you sold.
Maybe.
Like, oh,
maybe.
Come on, JT. He can't answer this basic
question.
Maybe. Come on. Oh my. Anton, I'm just saying the way you present yourself on the internet is that you're just solo, self-made person who did X, Y, Z. I'm just calling cap on that, right?
Okay.
You could have the millions in your brokerage account, right? That you said you had, right? So you had like 6 to 8 million in brokerage account that you sold so many Patreon members when you bet up in Florida or something like that, right? No one.
Wait.
Numbers. I think it's like 6 to 8 million that you said you had in a brokerage account. You just playing around the numbers. Right? No one cares about comparing bags. That's useless. That doesn't answer the arguments I'm asking here. I'm just saying, how'd you led up to those bags? The story is very much and still unclear to many people.
Then that's fair.
And you're not answering. You're not trying. There's no attempt for you to try to reconcile
a lot of the practical information that the majority people can.
You were able to start a company. The overhead didn't require multiple millions of dollars to start. You had an idea into an application. It shot up. You were able to get bought out. You made your money. Okay, great. Let's say that's true.
Mm-hmm.
How is that something that can be repeated? How can that be used as a example of what others can do? Because I'm going to say it right here, you know.
Okay, so
I'll leave it at that, man. You know what I mean? You know, and this goes, and there's a lot of this type of stuff that happens, man. And our, you know, these charlatans, man, that get on the YouTube. You know, now it's YouTube, man, primarily. You know, but they use other, you know, social media, Instagram, YouTube. Then then they get interviewed by other people that you know on the mainstream, like the Breakfast Club, right? You know, or some sort of radio station, what have you. And again, they're able to talk. You know, all of this, you know. They talk real good. It sounds good. It sounds very intelligent. And they get people to buy into this crap, man. And it's a bunch of BS, man, at the end of the day. You know, you're not going to be able to do what he did, more likely than not. You know what I'm saying? That, you know, there's a bunch of software engineers out there, companies, bro. And they'll be lucky, you know, if they ever get to sell an app, like, and get bought out where you got multi-millions, you know what I'm saying? Like, bro, come on. That's not every day, dude. You know what I mean? You know, and I'm wondering who was he tied to for it, because it probably wasn't black owned, or they didn't probably put up a black face, because you know black tech gets discriminated in these startup companies and you know in the venture capital and so on and so forth. So it's just, you know, man, at the end of the day, you know, just did that, just kind of, you know, this was one example. We just kind of want to bring it back around, like we're not going to finance our way out of it. We're not going to culture our way out of it. You know, all the escape hatches is not going to happen. We're going to have to do the political work, man, to get what is owed to our people, man. At the end of the day, reparations is the only way to solve all of these freaking problems, man. It has to be transformative policy. You know what I mean? Federal policy, because it was transformative federal policy that led us down this road. You know, it was the government, state and local and federal governments that have provided the environment to where our people were locked out of the system, man, and where our wealth was stolen and at every turn. And when we did try to, you know, do our own business, Black Wall Streets, you know, so on and so forth, we've always been fighting with our arm behind our backs, you know, tied behind our backs. So, you know, I think we've covered it, man. I'll let you guys. I'll get the floor back up to you all, man. But you know, yeah.
No, I mean, no, I was gonna say I appreciate you sharing that, Gerard. I mean, but it seems like it's a few different types of bootstrappers. You got the bootstrappers who keep pushing like financial literacy, and you just need black people need to get on top of it. Then you got bootstrappers who believe education is ultimately going to be the path forward for our people, despite the lack of capital that's going to still be needed. Is there any other forms you guys can think of? And then instead, I know you want to jump in. Go ahead.
The main ones what the bootstrappers do. If we just do black business. If we just do black business, that's what's going to propel us out of our condition. And we just support our own. I had a video talk, but we'll cover that some other time, man. But the lady, I give her credit. It was this video was done by Deutsche World, the German media outlet, talking about the upper class black people, right? And how there's like 1.5 million, black Americans that are millionaires. I'm sitting up there, I'm saying, like, yeah, out of what though? Out of 40 something? You know what I mean? Right. Like, where and so they were doing a piece. They did a piece on Don Pebbles, I believe. He's I guess they say he's the black version of Donald Trump. He's a real estate developer, or what have you. And they did this other lady where they were hair care products or whatever, natural hair care products for our people. And it was one lady. She was, her and her husband were earning $300K a year. They lived actually later outside the Chicago area, I believe. And she was like, she made an emphasis to, buy black or what have you, man. But it's support black business or what have you. But man, at the end of the day, it was so many of us don't have the wealth to where we could substantially support our own. It's just kind of like a cycle. It's just like a circle that we always keep going in. If you don't, at some point you got to break the circuit and do something different. You know what I'm saying? Like if you have a bad engine or your tires are flat, just trying to go faster is not going to help. In a race, in a race or what have you. You got to fix the fundamental thing with the car that's wrong, in order for you to be competitive. You could get around, you could do your laps or what have you. Yeah, you're making some progress going around the track, but all the other cars are zooming past, man. You're not going to win the race or even be competitive at all. So, and that's what reparations does for us, man. It will solve our fundamental infrastructural problems that we have going on because we're a wealthless race at the end of the day. So I said my piece on that, guys.
So what I wanted to say is this kind of reminds you of that whole thing in the news now with Kim Kardashian saying women just need to work harder if they want to be rich. And it's like you made your money releasing the sex tape. And coincidentally, you had a mother who was a publicist. Your father was a famous lawyer. Your mother was remarried to a man who, I guess a man at the time, who was the last American to win the decathlon in the Olympics. And you had a sex tape with a guy who was arguably a larger, I won't even say arguably, he was the largest celebrity in y'all's interaction. So more people was probably paying money to see who he was actually having sex with than to see you. And that's not replicable. And you want to women got to work harder. You was laying down. You made all your money, your fame, your name was your father. It's your father's name. And then you was laying on your back to make your bread, right? Even your sisters, your little sisters who don't have the same father as you, have even gone so far as to alter their own features so they look more like y'all, right? Because they understand that there's a brand now in y'all's image. That's not replicable for people. Nobody else can do that. And so if it's the same with this. You want to try to tell people, like me and Gerard was talking about this yesterday. It always be like rappers and like athletes and stuff, people who do these really one-off, very, very lucrative jobs that are very hard to get find success in that want to tell people how hard they worked by themselves. Like, we don't learn about the athletes who don't succeed. We only learn about the ones who get the $1 million contracts. We don't learn about the rappers or the singers or whatever, the actors who end up broke, homeless, waiting tables, whatever. We only learn about those who are successful. Then you want to come back, I had to do this sacrifice. In the grand scheme of things, and maybe I'm biased because, I used to play sports and stuff, even though I don't necessarily look so in shape right now, but it's way easier to just work out to be in shape than it is to try to do anything that requires you to put like a mental or a like an intellectual to try to get like anything going as far as an idea or to make a living for yourself. It's way easier to say, I'm gonna just run these miles and do these drills and do these exercises and have somebody feed me because I can pay somebody to make sure I eat healthy. That's way easier. Anybody can do that. And if you can devote all your energy to it, you're even more successful. That's why you see, like in the Caribbean, you see baseball academies, or in South America and Europe, you see soccer academies where they just have kids from young. You just play soccer or you just play baseball, and this is what you're going to do for the rest of your life. We understand that dynamic when we looking at everything else, but then when it comes to this other stuff, oh yeah, I'm self-made. No, man, we just learning about the successes. So yeah, everybody can't start a Windows or a mixtape platform. How many people need to do that? That's why Elon Musk didn't try to start Twitter or a competitor. He just bought Twitter. Whether that's going to be useful or financially profitable for him long term, that's his decision. I mean, I don't have $40 billion to be making those kind of decisions. But that's why he didn't start his own platform. He just bought one. That's why people do that. That's why people buy things instead of creating their own, because it's easier to do that. You don't need to have them. That's why, with the whole Bootstrapper, we don't need to have 1 million bosses. It's impractical and unnecessary. You don't have to have that. But what we need is a more equitable system. And what we need to address is the fact that Black people have been systematically locked out. Freedmen have been systematically locked out for participating in the system that was only possible because of the labor of their ancestors or themselves and the continued oppression and degradation of their own labor. That's it. So I'll leave it at that. My power went out. They got me. So they blinked me out.
Hey, I was gonna say, that was excellent, Stead. And just to even slam dunk that, the example that we see is I guess one of the biggest bootstrappers we've seen in this last generation is Barack Obama. And so you got someone who's telling black people need to value education and work harder, and anything's achievable in America. And the reality is he had a white mother and he got $400,000 in wealth from his grandparents when they left, and grew up in Hawaii and had different educational experiences. And so his path to becoming the president of the United States is unreplicable for a descendant slave. The same with Kamala Harris, the connections that she come from, the background, is unreplicable for a descendant slave, for a Black woman to achieve the same things. But again, you talk about these people who all want to talk about the people who were successful. And again, you're not talking about the people who were failures. And so to Gerard's point with that business bootstrapper clip, a lot of people want to talk about the successful businesses who all made $1 million. But let's talk about all of these businesses who ain't even cracked more than $20,000. He had a loan more than $5,000 in a single year. And these are Black-owned businesses, and they do have overhead, and they're just not able to make ends meet. And on top of that, at all of the Black businesses that we did have, look at how COVID destroyed half of those businesses when we're looking at cities like Detroit. And understand what that means for Black people who don't have the capital or the wealth to sustain a business once you do fall under, or once a bill is due and you don't have the capital to make that payment. So again, that's my only comments. You guys definitely, I feel like if we want to go ahead and give wrap up comments, we could do so. I'll start just by saying again, for those who joined in, this specific episode, we wanted to have a discussion about the enemy within, the folks who particularly oppose reparations or oppose Black American history or even Black American politics. We wanted to highlight those people and show you why we felt that, they're harmful, and at the same time, give you a position of like true freedmen based on our interpretation of our history or whatnot. And so with that being said, I hope you guys enjoy it. Make sure you hit that like button, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you stay tuned for more episodes. Gerard, Stedman, when do you guys want to go next?
Yeah. So, I just want to reiterate that the majority of mainstream or large-scale Pan-African organizations are completely corrupt and co-opted, and maybe even at their inception have been that way. I hope we could do more, maybe go into more detail about it, just understanding it. And I would like to, try to make a distinction between individuals who share a Pan-African ideology, whether I believe that they're misguided or not. Sincere, ordinary people on the ground who believe that this makes sense, even though I don't. And these organizations that I'm talking about specifically, they don't have the intention of getting anything done to benefit the descendants of freedmen, right? They're just like PETA, where you will see PETA talking about animal mistreatment, but they don't say nothing about human beings getting mistreated. It's the exact same situation. You want to talk about we're all African, but you never speak about our condition in this country. All you talking about is making sure that more African and more Caribbean or diasporan people, non-freedmen, can come over here and be safe. And so we need to understand that through the context of reparations. And I also think we got to understand this too. So like we don't ever get a lot of traction on our shows, like 200 views is good for us. But we have a very like education, information heavy show. We're not trying to sell you something. We're not trying to get you to buy something. We're not trying to get you to live some kind of fantasy about going to some fantastical country that's actually a continent full of 50 different countries and 800 different languages. We're not doing that. We want you to understand the reality of the situation you're in, have a political education, a historical education, and try to, do things in your own community to try to positively impact it for yourself and your family and your future generations. We don't have a salacious show where we trying to, this. We don't do a lot of the gossip stuff. We don't do a lot of the current events, drama stuff. We don't do any of this fantastical stuff. We're not trying to teach you how to get rich, right? Because we don't have that experience. What we're trying to do is give you education, and it's not popular. But if you all who are watching it can share it and try to get people to at least hear it, you can give people that foundation to combat some of this misinformation, because that's what's happening. When you have these ahistorical comments from the Pan-Africans, or these ahistorical comments from the Pretendians, or these ahistorical or anti-factual comments from the Bootstrappers, you could have some facts, some information, some knowledge to refute that and say, no, well, this don't make sense based on what this it's not arbitrary, this third-party research, not the Freedmen Collective. We're just, messengers of the research. It ain't our research. We're just giving you the information. So it's not, we're not biased towards the information. We just want you to know the truth. Okay? Not everybody who claims to want reparations wants it. And not everybody claim to have your back. It's a lot of charlatans out there. And they come in all forms and shapes and all that stuff. So, and just one more thing. I ain't trying to say that, because you donate to people's Patreons, that makes them scammers. I'm not trying to say that if you do super chats, they're a scam because people request super chats. You do what you want to do with your money. But what I am saying is that you need to be careful when people are trying to sell you stuff. You need to be careful when people are trying to give you certain ideas and fantastical, whatever. Are they really trying to give you the truth, or are they trying to get the popularity so they can make money off of you? So that's it. Peace, love, reparations. Be safe, be smart, and keep watching.
Hey, Gerard, you want to close us out?
Yeah, man. We have no permanent friends. We have no permanent enemies. Only permanent interest. And my permanent interest will be always for the well-being of the freedmen community here in the United States. And we try to give you guys, some third eye. Information in regards to all these different types of groups that present themselves in one way, but really, all in all, they're distracting from the overall cause of us, freedmen getting that transformational policy that we really need to truly thrive in this country. Anton did say something that I agree with. we're going to get priced out. We're already priced out of this country. You know what I mean? You know, it is in his video said 50,000 isn't the same as it was before. You're broke if you have 50,000. Yet still, we have politicians trying to act like $15 an hour is, you know, if you did the math, that's only 30,000. That's 20,000 less than that. You know, but as if that's some sort of gain. At the end of the day, we need a fair and more balanced system. That is true overall for all peoples, but the specific damage that was done to our people have to be repaired and take the main priority. Now, it can be done simultaneously, you know, because we're still citizens. We don't ever discredit that we're citizens, but a specific harm was done to us above and beyond us being citizens, and that needs to be repaired at the end of the day. And anything other than that is injustice. So I'll leave with that, guys. Peace and reparations.
Peace. I was gonna say with that, make sure you guys stay tuned. We should have our next show 2 weeks from now on Tuesday. If we're not on the traditional YouTube platform, we'll definitely be on a Clubhouse or Spaces platform, which is through Twitter. So be sure to check us out from there. And with that being said, peace, love, and reparations. Peace, guys.
Peace.